for approval or opening the account.
Okay, we'll take note of that.
The use of private receipt books was also raised by the auditor.
Yes, the receipt books were in need. You know, we're not a revenue generating institution, so those receipt books have been there. In fact, that's why only 2 had been used. One was fully used. These receipt books were there since 2004. So it was even difficult for us to determine whether these were procured from the GPPC. But based on the audit recommendations, we agreed to discard those receipt books. They were 25, but only 2 was used, one fully and the other one is quarterly used. We've discarded them, and that issue has been regularized. We've written to GPPC, and they had printed us new receipt books. Yes.
When was it regularized? 2021?
In 2022.
2022.
Yes.
It appears, if not all, but most of the issues were regularized in 2022.
Yeah, because the audit, the issues were raised in the audit in 2022, because the audit just completed in 2022. Yes.
Now, the revolving fund. Do you have any policy guideline regarding the revolving fund?
Yes, we have, because the revolving fund, initially we had an assessment done by the Ministry of Finance itself before the revolving fund will be established. And then based on those recommendations which were in that assessment done by the Ministry of Finance, we had an MOU between the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Youth and Sports, as well as SDF, which are the custodians of the revolving loan, because the fund itself comprises of 3 categories. We have the entrepreneurship component of it. We have a partial grant component. We also have the loan component, which is managed by SDF. So there is an MOU which is guiding the operations of the revolving fund. Of course, yes.
That is to say, there is prescribed policy that is guiding the process.
There is, yes, there is, yes.
Okay, and that outline how the beneficiaries would apply and be selected.
Yes, it does. It does.
Do you have a separate bank account for that loan scheme?
The loan scheme is managed by SDF. So they have a separate portfolio for it, which is not mixed in any of the other projects they have, and they are core funds. We are part of the Grant Review Committee. The Grant Review and Approval Committee. We are part of that, but the fund in itself is directly remitted to SDF, and they have a separate portfolio. The system shows every transaction and every dealings of the revolving fund separate. Yes.
Can you tell us the source or the sources of the fund meant for the revolving?
Yeah, the source is the levy. It's from the Youth and Sports Development Levy through the Ministry of Youth and Sports. Yeah.
When did it start to benefit from that, what they call the Youth and Sport Development Levy?
It was in 2020. It was only 1 remittance that was done so far. We've write and working with the ministry, together with the Ministry of Finance, to make sure the fund for the revolving loan, it's been increased again, but there was 1 disbursement made in 2020.
At one point, we were trying to find out from the ministry how that particular levy would be managed and then control, that there should be a team that should be set in trying to manage and control the levy, because many a time during the budget session, our argument will be there should be more allocation as far as the youth sector is concerned, or the sports as well. But the Ministry of Finance will argue that there is a package for them, that is the levy. But we will not know what, because that particular levy is not only meant for youth and sports or the youth and sport development or something like that. So you will not know exactly what percentage you are to benefit if that particular body, that is the management team, is not set to outline the fund that is going to be allocated for the youth and sports and how it is going to be managed. For the disbursement is also another thing. So I don't know, as it stands right now, how do you assess this particular fund? Is it based on request you program, and then based on that, allocation is given to you to that effect?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. I think the youth revolving loan, as you also may know, this was something that you yourself, the committee then requested, and through cabinet directive, the fund was rolled out to the Minister of Youth and Sports and Finance. Normally for us at NEDI, we would not know exactly what happened at that level. All that we do is to request for a component that will go to entrepreneurship-related activities. And sometimes we do even agree. The revolving aspect is only on the loan. The other element is on entrepreneurship-related development programs. And that's why when Ministry of Finance conducted their assessment of SDF and NEDI, they concluded that SDF can manage the loan. When it comes to entrepreneurship training, mentoring, and coaching, NEDI is having a comparative advantage on that. NEDI can do that. So that's the way. When we signed the contract, the MOU between us and SDF, it was that document. Let them take the part that will be purely on loan and manage the loan component. Then NEDI can take the component on the entrepreneurship programs and roll out that program. And what happens when we conducted these trainings with the young people and women, we help them to understand how to apply the loan. But once they apply and submitted the loan applications to SDF, now SDF, through their own internal regulations, will review these applications and then we'll present a list of potential loan applicants for the approval committee to approve. So at the other level we are not, but we are involved once the funds is released to us. Thank you.
In your previous loan revolving before this one, there were issues of recovery to some extent. With the advent of this one, do you encounter any recovery issue?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's what I'm saying. Currently, the loan aspect is not managed by us. We were yearning to get it from them to manage it, but it was not given to us because I think finance and SDF have that understanding, and that's why it was given to SDF. And this is why we are still now following to ensure that we have our own funds that would be able to be given to the young people when they apply. But currently, we don't have any fund, and that's why at our level we don't call it revolving. We call it Youth Entrepreneurship Program. But we mentioned the youth revolving because it comes through the youth revolving fund. But the amount that we receive is only meant for entrepreneurship training, mentoring, and coaching, and business support. That's what we receive.
How do you do the business support?
For example, it's in a form of grant. We invite applications from the people that we train on entrepreneurship, and they will submit their applications. Then us and the Department of Planning with the National Youth Council will look into those applications and see those who are supposed to receive the grant, they are given the grant. On our side, we will conduct training, we will conduct mentoring and coaching, and when it comes to grant support, there is a committee that is responsible for the approval.
That committee is outside NEDI?
NEDI is part of it with the department, with the ministry, and also the National Youth Council.
SDF.
And SDF.
But who take the responsibility of recovering that grant?
No, the grant is grant empowerment. The loan is not us, but the grant, that one is to empower your program. That's the support I'm talking about, sir. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Honorable members, with the management letter, these were the key issues that were highlighted, and then the outstanding one, which was not implemented according to the auditor, was the issue of the use of the private receipt books. We've just been told that for 2022 that has been regularized. If you have any observation on the finances and the management letter, you may equally make a follow-up question on that before we move to the activity report. Honorable Cham?
Yes. NEDIS staff use as resource person, mentors, facilitators, and trainers. Do they receive any form of remuneration? Your staffs?
Yes, when we send them in the field and they are conducting, yes, they receive. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Could that not also, like the auditors rightly said, bring in some kind of conflict of interest?
No, because we're trying to ensure that they are taken care of when they are in the field. Thank you.
Thank you. It was also noted that individual line items in the program budget of the enterprise were wrongly classified in the financial statements, and there is a reference to 3, 2, and 5. Can you explain why?
The classification we've mentioned happened when we changed, because NEDI initially was reporting on a receipt, cash and receipt basics. We've moved to an accrual basics. Now we're using IPSAS fully, which is the International Public Account. So now what happened was, when some of the line items, for example, the professional fees, which was paid for the development of the strategic plan, instead of moving it to the program budget line, because in our budget, it is under the program budget line. But instead, in the presentations of the accounts, on the surface of the accounts, it was moved to the admin expenses. So those were some of the classifications. They were not material. We took note of them with the audits, and that has been rectified accordingly. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. There is also another question on fuel, if this has not been asked at my absence. It was also noted that fuel coupons were disposed to staff as car allowances without approval of the board, and there are also references attached to it.
Yes, this happened. You know, NEDI, we only have one silent vehicle for the MD at the time, up to the year 2020. One of the reasons when the board came, they helped us get another double cabin for the operations of the activities. We were only relying on one vehicle, which was the saloon car for the MD. It was used for our M&Es, and if the vehicle is on an M&E, we are stranded. So the individual staffs use their vehicles to run the errands of the office. So as they are moving, we give them coupons. It was not a car allowance that was given. It is given based on specific activities and the programs that were run at the time, just to run those issues while the vehicle is in dispose. But that has been resolved since in 2021 because in December we bought a double cabin pickup, which is now used for the M&E and the operations of the office. Yes.
But where is the internal auditor? Is the internal auditor here, or the auditor? Can the auditor clarify why he is mentioning it as car allowance without approval of report?
Thank you so much, Honorable. I mean, if you look at the citation that we have quoted, is that allowances to be approved by the board. However, yes, we understand the explanation that he gave, but this was not in line. Yes, I mean, there was no vehicle, so they had to use their own vehicle to carry out activity. That doesn't mean that they should be given fuel to carry out those activities. It should be approved by the board first. And this was not the case at the time.
Oh, no, I think no, thank you. Yes, we took note of that because at the time we were definitely in distress because we had been following up to get a vehicle. There was a double cabin pickup. Even the chairman can be a witness. If you use it on the road, even from Westfield to Serakunda, it will have breakdown several times. So because of those circumstances, and staffs will buy their own fuels to run these activities. And while we have a budget approved by the board, if these fuels have been approved by the board for monthly fuel coupons to be purchased for the operations of the business. So we only use, if you checked, this is why the portion that was given to the staff to use in their vehicles, the fuel coupon, that was what was given. If the vehicle for the GM is not around, it becomes because if we hire taxis, it's very expensive. So we decide instead of hiring taxi or hiring vehicles, which are very expensive, if you send a staff to attend a meeting, you give the person 250 coupon to attend that meeting. If you have letters that we are circulating, we issue. We agree. It might not be in line. That's why that was, we agree. In fact, we changed that since in January 2021, before the audit will come. That was definitely resolved. It happened only in 2020 because of lack of the vehicle. Yes.
But it's like the auditor is not satisfied with the answer given to them, because this is why it is not recommended in the report or the management letter. So what can you do to satisfy the audit so that we can have that in our report, or they can recommend to the National Assembly?
Yeah, I mean, as he rightly mentioned, yes, in 2020 we were not satisfied with the procedure that happened. That would necessitated for them to stop immediately. As we speak, that have ceased. They are not doing that anymore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
He was in his submission. He was saying that it was resolved by the board to be giving out coupons. That's what he was trying to justify. But during the period under review, the auditors requested for that, but you couldn't provide it, meaning it was not a board resolution.
No, I said the fuel, the budget line for fuel has been approved by the board. But the issuance of because they said, we in our service rule, we have a portion where staffs could be given car allowances, but that have not been the case. That is their recommendation for us to seek approval from the board. They were saying that was what we should have done, but we did not, because that is a provision in the service rule. But that issue had been resolved now.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
And another thing, the untapped fixed assets. It is noted that during physical verification of the assets vis-a-vis review of the fixed assets, the auditors noted that the assets were not physically tagged.
Yes, it was realized that some of the assets, because these tags are in plastic formats, when printed, is a sticker, so it could be removed. We had tagged, but it was not complete before the audit exercise. But in fact, during the audit exercise, when they realized it, we done that immediately. That was an oversight, and it has been resolved. Yes.
It is noted that in 2020 you received $8 million. And so for activities that were not implemented, 6.7 for the youth revolving loan, and then 1.2 for the GIS project. How did you utilize that money in the subsequent year?
Yes, the activities were not completed at the time of the year ended, December. So the activities continue in January. So in 2021, all those contracts were completed. The funds were utilized in 2021. Yes.
Honorable colleagues, in the absence of no other issue regarding the finances, can we move to the activity report?
But there are also some other pending issues here.
In the finance?
Yeah, in the finance,
You can do so.
page 38. Basic salary incremental. It states that
Yes.
during the auditor's review, they realized that this salary increment, they realized that the personal files were not updated with notification letters or memo to mark the beginning of the payment of the pay scale for the staffs.
Yes, this was noted because NEDI was established in 2004, and it was enacted by an act of parliament in 2013. So when it was enacted, the policies were developed and approved, and the payroll was approved then by the board. But this notification in 2013, when the payroll was fully adopted, the notification, as per their observation, were not sent. But when they realized it, we took note of that, and this issue also had been resolved. Yes. Yes.
Mr. Chair? I have a
Honorable
question.
Chair?
With the annual leave, it was noted that some of the staff have not been going on leave, and also reference attached. What do you do?
Yeah, because 2019 and 2020, because of the COVID, there was a circular from government, and we were rotating staffs. So due to that, because it was like within a week, some staff, maybe we have few staff, it's like 12 of us. So if 6 of the staff is away for today, and that has happened almost for a greater part of the year. So it was seen necessary that since almost the year had not been fully utilized, in fact, the activity implementation started in July proper. So we were active in our implementation for about 4 to 5 months. So this was why most of the staffs did not go on leave, but were taking casual leaves instead. Yes.
Also, was the personal staff file reveals, those reveals that some of the documents were missing in the file, were they recovered?
Yes. During the audit, then we've already hired some record staffs from the government to change our filing system, because due to that some files were moved. They can attest to that. When they came for the audit, these people were already there, and the files were totally moved because we were changing the filing system so that we can have a proper filing system and archive the old files. That was one of the reasons, and these documents were seen. In fact, some of them were sent back to the auditors for reference purpose. Yeah.
Auditor, was that the case?
Yeah, they have since adjusted the personal files.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other issue on finance? Let's move on to the activity report. Table members, the floor is open. You can go through the report. If you have any issue that you want them to clarify, you can do so. Honorable Chair.
Yes, regarding the revolving fund, who are the beneficiaries?
Thank you very much. That's what I explained earlier on to the chairman, that the revolving fund is not with us. It's with it's called the revolving loan at SDF. We only have the component that is on entrepreneurship development programs, which is training, mentoring, and coaching. Thank you.
The reason why I ask is I was a councillor before.
Yes.
Then I hosted one of your staffs. We went around the community interviewing some of the entrepreneurs in my community, promising them that they will benefit from this loan, but they are yet to benefit, and this is about 3 years ago.
Thank you very much. In terms of the loan, it's on need-based, demand-driven. And what happened, there are some criteria that individuals will have to meet. First, you have to be a young person within the ages of 18 to 35. And you have to qualify, meaning you have to register your business, have a bank account, and you should be in business. And also there are people who are not actually in business, but they have registrations and they have desire to start business. The first thing you have to apply. So is individuals who do not apply those loan wouldn't qualify to get the loan. So maybe what happened is that those individuals either did not apply or they applied but they did not qualify to get the loan.
Yeah, but why are those criteria attached? Will that not defeat the purpose of youth empowerment? Given the fact that most of our youths, they are unemployed, they have no resources, things like that.
No, we are still empowering, because what happens with, that is why I said either you are in business or you have a desire to start business. But first and most importantly, you have to be a Gambian, and you have to have the national documentation and the registration. So what happened in terms of the registration, we do that to see that they have some level of commitment to start business. Because if there is no level of commitment from themselves, then it becomes very difficult to sustain that business. So it's very easy, because getting a TIN certificate is free of charge. So once you get a TIN certificate, to register your business is just $500. And at our level, what we do, we try to empower some of those young people who want to register their business but do not have the necessary requirements to do that. So we support them. And that is why once you don't have a TIN certificate, a national documentation, then automatically we disqualify you. And you will also have to get a form that you fill, so that there is a level of process. Because if there is no process, then we were talking about empowerment, but there will be no fair play in the process. So that is why we have those processes that we follow. Thank you.
Those people I took this guy to, those who are already engaged in businesses. They are registered, they have their businesses, and they have taken information from them, but up to date, they did not benefit from that package.
Thank you very much, Honorable. These people that you are mentioning, did they apply or were they visited to collect their applications?
But obviously, the resource person should have informed them.
No, what we... Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I just clarify that? Yes, I just want to clarify what the Honorable is saying. You remember in 2020 I reported we did a survey. I think the Honorable is referring to the survey. The survey, what we did is to collect information from entrepreneurs and would-be entrepreneurs to know actually what they need in terms of capacity, in terms of training, and what kind of support. This was to give us a baseline as to what type of support and what type of training young people need. It may be the people we send to the field were not our staff. These are volunteers we recruited from the University of the Gambia, most of them. And we send them to the field to do this data collection for us. It must be misinterpreted that way. But the purpose was to get information that will inform us what kind of trainings and support that we would provide to the people. Thank you.
Somehow I'm satisfied. It seems like, those people were used to gather certain information and then later just leave them like that. That's the end of it. And again, information also is a question too. How do the people access this information?
You mean the public? The public? About our information is always accessible to the public. One, we work with the youth and sports structures across all the country, and we work with the office of the governors across the country. And when we have development issues like this, in terms of training, in terms of other support, it will be translated to the youth chairpersons across the country and through the office of the governors. And that is how this information is filtered to the beneficiaries.
But in the Local Government Act, the entry point of any community is the Ward Development Committee. But to me, we were never involved in such programs.
That's right. That's noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was this support or empowering the youth, 24 youth, on these agro-processing machines, and sponsored by GCI and, of course, in collaboration with NADI. Yes, it is all part of youth empowerment as expected from NADI. But once you train them of these agro-processing machines, is there any maintenance that you also provide for them? And how often do you do that? And is there any other support in terms of services when you're away? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Yes, we keep in touch with these service centers. These are 9 agro-processing centers in LRR. And what we do, we work with the Agric Engineering Unit, the Ministry of Agriculture, and the training is conducted by Agric Engineering Unit. And we have a field focal person of Agric Engineering Unit who does routine maintenance. And we keep in touch. We do our regular M&Es. We support them with additional equipment that will keep them improving. And I can report that these centers are operating and they are getting a lot of business opportunities for young people in the regions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Speaking of agro-processing, I understand that there is one agro-processing center in Joswang. Were you the ones who funded that project?
No, we are not. Our agro-processing centers are all in LRR, in Kiang and Jara. Yes.
I'm not sure whether it's the program officer or the general manager. Series of trainings had been conducted, general entrepreneurship, about 330 youths benefited, and then 36 for the Gambia Shanghai initiatives. Also, the graduates were trained in terms of business plan and entrepreneurship. 36 of them benefited, 150 youth and women also trained in general entrepreneurship from the revolving fund project. And then the backway ship Reiki survivors also were trained on business management and entrepreneurship. All this training had been conducted during the year under the review. What is your assessment in terms of the trainees venturing into these businesses that they were duly trained for?
Thank you very much, Chairman. My assessment, or our assessment, is that most of them are doing good because initially, before we recruit them or they apply for the training, they were not doing anything. But once they were recruited and selected and they were trained, they start doing something. Because some of these interventions, we were doing it with the GIZ, and the Germans, they always want value for money. They will be on us to see whether the trainings are yielding any positive results. And we keep going on monitoring to see those that have been trained, what are they doing? And either they are in retail business, or they are in agro business, or they are within the agricultural value chain. And this is why we have this strong partnership with agriculture. So most of them are doing something after the training. But before the training, they will tell you definitely we are not doing anything. Chairman, as I am talking now, we have over 350 applications from young people who want just to be trained on entrepreneurship. Because the idea is once you are trained, now you have the opportunity to apply the other interventions that are coming from projects. Because the projects will always make it as a requirement whether you have attended any entrepreneurship training before they provide support to you. So most of them would have that opportunity to get funding also from these interventions. Thank you.
Sorry, Chairman?
Yeah, I just want to.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, GM. Thank you, Chair. Just to add to his assessment, it is very, very interesting to note that NEDI continues to make significant impact in both lives and livelihood of the young and the women of this country. Think from yesterday up to today, we have met about 3 honorable members who have been reliably informed that they received training from NEDI. So this just goes to tell you that it doesn't only stop even at the entrepreneurship side, but even at the level of the National Assembly, we are making impact. So it was a great pride for us to meet 3 National Assembly members who I was reliably informed that received training from NEDI. Thank you.
Honorable Cha.
Thank you. But is it all the time that all your trainees are supported fully? Because it seems so there are events that you might come across someone who has conducted the training and the person may not be fully supported in terms of financial status.
Yes, that does happen. We, at our end, we are even looking at the training as a support because it's capacity building, that's a support. So after the capacity building support, then that comes access to finance. So one of the kind of support that we're giving to young people is training. Because once you're trained, you have your capacities built, you can think outside the box, you can have another opportunity of getting funds raised outside. And they have the opportunity to understand all of these things during the training, to do fundraising on their own. But in the event that they are trained, also they have the opportunity to use the training certificate and use the knowledge to apply other funds that are within the entrepreneurship ecosystem, like the take a fee. Most of our trainees will apply for that. So even if we don't have, when we train you, we don't have ready-made financial support for you, we link them up. And that's why part of our program, we have what is called market linkages. We link them up to other partners to get support.
Okay. Any other, Cham or no Cham?
Yeah, I can see most of your activities are centered in the rural areas, that is up country. So what kind of programs do you have for the Greater Banjul area? Youths of the Greater Banjul area.
We did, in 2020, we did programs in Greater Banjul area. Our programs that are focused in the rural areas are more project driven, because projects are focused more in the rural areas. And that is why if you look at our agri-based projects are more in rural areas. But based on our own core mandates, we have trainings, we have mentorship, we even, our access to our entrepreneurship support programs that we have provided, 90% of them are all within the GBA. That's from Banjul to the Brikama end. But when it comes to projects that we are dealing with, they are all in the regions. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. I think that's for the general manager. In the recommendations, you indicated part of it. You recommended that increase funding to support targeting youth in the agricultural value chain to increase food production. When I look at the activities, it appears most of the activities as far as agriculture is concerned is based on agro-food processing. Whether you have any agricultural venture that will require food production, that is having a scheme that is engaged in the food production, either in a form of animal husbandry or horticulture or crop production across the country. And if so, how do you accrue funding for that particular project?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. You realize that in 2020, towards the end of 2020, we began to diversify our approach towards agri-value chain. And we did a lot of programs on horticulture. We trained 25 women in horticulture, and that's from the theory to garden preparation towards the marketing aspect. And we also diversified to bakery. We also trained 25 youth on bakery and bread production, and we also took them from the theory up to and that was 3 months, pure apprenticeship. And we also went on to beekeeping. We trained 25, and these are all women in beekeeping and honey production. And we also went into other areas like food processing. So we tried to diversify to see we invest more into other valued areas where people can get livelihood, and that is more into bakery, honey production, and horticulture. And that is why we are saying, because there is a lot of interest from young people, particularly in bakery, if more funding is accrued to us, we would be able to create a lot of bakery farms across the country, where young people will be able to manage that.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. In addition to that, like we earlier stated, the grant component under the youth revolving loan, we are targeting exactly young people in agriculture, those who need farming equipment, or those who need stores, or those who need spray. These are the people that we were targeting, because we think that it is important for them to do that. That's what we were doing in agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable colleagues, is there any other issue surrounding the activity report? Neucha.
Thank you very much. From your deliberation just now, most of your trainees, you said they are all women. I'm glad to hear that. That means you are empowering women, which is very, very important. With my area, that is a Lower Nyomi constituency, if I want to contact you people, where to go? Where to go?
Our office is at Westfield behind Family Planning, Jawara Building, just opposite Family Planning, Gambia National Youth Council. So just behind Family Planning at the Jawara Building, that's where you have our office. And in the region, you can always contact the youth offices. We have Regional Youth Coordinator's office in Kerawan. So if you go to the youth office, you will get the youth coordinator, and he will give you all the information that you need and the support. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, honorable members and officials from NEDI, likewise the National Audit Office, the clerks. It has been a very fruitful day with the NEDI. I hope the livelihood of the Gambian youth will continue to change with more support given to NEDI. On that note, this has brought us to the end of the consideration. And then, as I said, we did not have much issues surrounding the finances, which is a big improvement for NEDI. The queries that were advanced by the auditors were actually noted and then implemented. And for activities, we have few concerns that were raised and then adequately answered. On that note, can I put the question for any honorable member? Any honorable member to move for the consideration and adoption of the annual activity report of the unaudited financial statements of NEDI for the year 2020.
I move the motion for the adoption of the financial statement and the audited accounts of NEDI for consideration and adoption.
Second, it has been moved and seconded that we consider and adopt the annual activity report and audited financial statements of NEDI for the year 2020. Those in favor, please say aye. And those not in favor, please say no. The ayes have it. The activity report and audited financial statements for NEDI for 2020 therefore stands adopted. For subsequent adoption by the plenary when presented to the plenary, hopefully in September. On that note, I thank you, NEDI, for your participation in this process, and honorable members and the clerks, the auditor's office for the wonderful job that you have done. Thank you. The meeting stands. Can somebody move that we adjourn the meeting? Okay. I will now release the officials who are here. We have something to discuss internally before we adjourn the meeting. We are released to go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Honorable colleagues,